Nightly Musers, followers of the pod, faithful few and hopeful many, this is Anchor by Spotify. If you haven't heard about it, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's the very platform that allows me to give you what I give you on the nightly. So let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And it gives you the ability to distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so much more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally FREE free. So here's where you come in. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is ANCHOR.fm to get started. Thank you very much. Peace. Good evening. Welcome to the Nightly Muse. This is your host, Tinayeshe. Music is brought to you by Low Fly Productions. Shout out, plug. So, idols. I briefly broached on the topic when I talked about pornography and stuff. I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm a dreamer. I have thought about, I've thought about the amount of kids I want to have. I've brainstormed names, even though both of those things are not, I'm 50% of that equation and potentially more or less say in some of those things. I think about songs that I would want at a wedding, and I go to weddings and I think about like what I would want at mine, even though I'm a dreamer, and before I knew what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do with my life, I knew that I wanted to be a husband and a father. And while, yes, I talked about the devil not fighting fair and the ways that your God-given, long-standing, deepest desires can also turn into idols so quickly, I know that that's happened to me. But I also hope that, I feel like in Christian community, we do this thing where we're trying to point, in trying to edify, we can point out everybody's idol. At least from my experience, that idol in my life has been pointed out by a lot of people, or at least touched on by people that maybe don't have the authority to say those things, as if it's not something that I already know. Any sermon on idolatry I hear, that's the first place my mind goes to, probably because my mind's onto something there. But I don't feel shame for the fact that that's a desire in my life. And I have to remember that it is a desire that I believe came from God. It's a good thing. But I also have to remember that it's not the only thing. That God is the thing that should be my heart's biggest desire. But I also don't want to stop being hopeful. I don't know, sometimes it just feels like I don't know if anybody resonates with this, but in those, everybody has those things that, whether it's career, success, dreams of of grandeur, like being famous, being a celebrity, doing something important with your life, becoming a doctor, being a lawyer, making partner, getting rich, being wealthy. Like, people have primary desires. Being a mother, being a mom, being an entrepreneur. Those desires aren't inherently bad. And sometimes when somebody else's desire isn't what we desire, you can do one or the other. You can find a bunch of people who have the same desire as you and then get in a complaining party about why it hasn't happened yet. Or you can judge somebody else really easily because, oh, wow, they need to really work on that because it's like dominating their headspace. Meanwhile, you've got your own thing that dominates your headspace. And it may not be the same thing as them, but it just turns into judgy behavior that isn't healthy. It's not really edifying to the person. It just kind of makes them feel ashamed for wanting something that isn't inherently bad. And so a lot of my life, I think, is learning how to deal with the tension of two things. That, yeah, sometimes I can idolize something that doesn't need to take so much precedent in my heart. But I also need to have faith, because faith is the confidence of things to be hoped for and the assurance of things unseen. And so the second that I become hopeless, the second that I become jaded and cynical, is also the inverse of that idolatry. It's in its negative inverse form. So in my pursuit of God, in my pursuit of his heart, the things that he has to offer me, his wisdom, his comfort, his proximity, I don't let go of those dreams that I don't let go of them in the sense that they don't have to go anywhere. They just don't belong in the same room with God. There's one of my favorite songs. I lean not on my own understanding. My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. And I will climb this mountain with my hands wide open. I will climb this mountain with my hands. There's nothing I hold on to. There's nothing I hold on to. There's nothing I hold on to. I hold on to you. That part, there's nothing I hold on to. It's a song by United Pursuit. And there's another part where they split it into a different thing. It's like the outro, this flowy, spontaneous, it's called Climb. Same song. I'm so in love with you. There is no one else for me. Gets me every time. But this idea of climbing this mountain with my hands wide open, I'm pursuing Jesus with open hands. I'm submitting to his rule and reign. I'm trusting that he will make something beautiful out of my singleness. Yes, that is hopefully marriage and children one day, but also a beautiful story of learning that God is big enough to handle the lack in my life and the desires in my life and the pain in my life and the frustrations that come from prolonged singleness and the joys that come from his presence and the struggle of learning to prioritize his presence over my desires. So yes, I'm opening my hands to receive God, but within that, I'm also trusting that he knows the desires of my heart, that he formed me and knows me better than I know myself, and that he knows what I need. So I can look at singleness and say that it's a gift, not because I necessarily love it, because to be real with y'all, I hate this mess. But I can learn to say, okay, God, I trust you. And there's got to be a reason for this. So here I am. And in this time, I'm going to try to chase after you. And I'm going to try to keep my hands open so that I can receive you. Not so that I can receive whatever I want, but so that I can truly open myself up to more of who I believe God is. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I'm learning to rest in that tension. And I think within some of the things that I've been through and within some of the unfortunate, I think helpful, trying to be helpful, but sometimes unfortunate things that people can say out of love, air quotes, is that when I try to support people, I won't give them that truth unless I'm willing to show them the areas of my life where I'm the same as them. Because we've all got those things that we've got to open our hands for to receive what's real and what's life-giving, what's true life. Doesn't mean that God isn't going to address those desires. It just means that God wants us to prioritize life with him because he knows and he cares. I don't know if that makes any sense. But my disposition is that I'm going to keep being a hopeless romantic, and I'm going to keep being a dreamer, and I'm going to keep desiring the things that I desire. But I'm going to try to prioritize the person who has the power to give me those things, not so that he gives me them, but so that I can learn to love him better, so that when he gives me those things, because I believe he will, faith talk, that I'll be able to actually handle those things properly, so that I can treat them with the care and the respect and honor that those things deserve, so that I can actually utilize the gift to its fullest potential with the intent that the Creator made for it to be utilized, for the intent, you know what I'm trying to say, so that I can do with it what God calls me to do with it. And that switch is important. I'm opening my hands to receive a God who I believe is capable of doing those things not for the sake of receiving those things, but for the sake of actually learning to live life the way that he's called me to live. And so, yeah, I've learned a lot from the hard rebukes and the challenges and the edifications, or whatever Christian terms you want to say. But I've also learned that sometimes it's important to be vulnerable before you try to smack somebody upside the head with truth. So I guess this is kind of a different offshoot of being better advocates, but it also made me laugh because of the Living Single episode where I just talked about how I'm single. And so, yeah, I've been single for a long time. Two decades. I've been alive for 2 decades, but again, it's really the only lifelong desire I've had. And I'm still hopeful. I'm learning to do singleness well. And I'm learning to pursue God well. But I'm hopeful as ever. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if you're like me, stay hopeful. And just learn to open your hands. Peace. Shout out Low Fly. 5-star. 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 My singing voice the other time was better than that time, but it's okay. 5-star. Peace.